of individuals seeking meaning, dignity, belonging, peace, and hope. We live in a time of extraordinary achievement. Scientific discoveries are accelerating. Communication technologies connect continents in seconds. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the ways we learn, work, create, think, and communicate. We also live in an age marked by uncertainty. Across the world, societies face conflict, displacement, environmental challenges, social disintegration, and growing concerns about the future of humanity. We are perhaps more connected than ever before, yet not always more understood. This is where literature becomes indispensable. This is why literature becomes indispensable. Literature slows us down in a world that constantly urges us to move faster. It invites us to listen when we are tempted only to speak. A poet sharpens our sensitivity to language and emotion. A novelist may expand our capacity for empathy. A translator may perform the remarkable task of carrying meaning across linguistic and cultural boundaries. In that sense, writers do much more than produce texts. They help preserve our collective humanity. I have witnessed that power personally as well. For nearly a decade, I had the privilege of presenting a radio program, as Mr. Yuyutsu Sharma mentioned before, dedicated to Nepali music and literature. Week after week, I engaged with poems, songs, stories, and conversations with artists and creative minds. One of them was obviously your own Yuyutsu Sharma, founder and the curator of this beautiful festival. Those years taught me something valuable. Literature and music often travel where politics, geography, and social divisions cannot. They connect people through shared emotions, aspirations, and experiences. As we gather here today beneath the Himalayas, there could hardly be a more fitting place to reflect on the relationship between creativity, healing, and human connection. The Himalayas are not only simply mountains. For centuries, they have inspired seekers, pilgrims, philosophers, and artists. They remind us that the highest journeys are often not geographical, but intellectual, emotional, and spiritual. Nepal's beauty is frequently described through its landscapes, the snow-capped peaks, the rivers, forests, valleys, and diverse ecosystems that make our country unique. Yet, Nepal's greatest wealth extends beyond its natural beauty. It actually lies in the extraordinary diversity of its people, cultures, traditions, and languages. Within a relatively small geography, Nepal is home to a remarkable mosaic of communities, faiths, and cultural practices. More than 120 languages are spoken across our country, and each language carries its own worldview. Each community preserves stories, songs, folklore, myths, and memories that enrich our collective identity. Long before modern communication systems existed, stories connected our people. Long before social media, there were folk songs here. Long before digital platforms existed, there were storytellers carrying wisdom from one generation to the other. In many ways, literature has always been humanity's oldest communication technology. Nepal's literary tradition reflects this rich inheritance. My own literary journey has remained closely connected to that tradition. In 2006, I had the privilege of publishing an anthology of Nepali ghazals. Working closely with poetry deepened my appreciation for the richness of Nepali literary expression and for the unique ability of verse to capture both personal emotion and collective experiences. Poetry often expresses truths that cannot be conveyed through statistics, reports, policies, and official speeches that I have been dealing with these days. From the pioneering contribution of Bhanubhakta Acharya, who brought epic literature closer to ordinary citizens in the country, to Mahakavi Lakshmi Prasad Devkota, whose works continue to inspire readers across generations, Nepali literature has consistently sought to connect universal human concerns with local realities. Today, a new generation of Nepali writers, poets, translators, journalists, and creative thinkers continue this tradition. They engage with contemporary challenges while remaining rooted in our cultural heritage. This is why gatherings such as the Himalayan Festival matter. They create spaces where ideas travel freely across borders. A poet from one continent, a novelist from another, a scholar from a third, and a young emerging writer from Nepal may arrive here with different histories and experiences. Yet, through literature, they discover a common language of humanity. At a time when divisions often dominate public discourse, such encounters are not luxuries. I feel they are the necessities. I'm particularly delighted that this festival has brought together distinguished literary figures from around the world. Your presence in Kathmandu demonstrates the enduring power of literature to foster dialogue, mutual understanding, and cultural exchange. As I look around this gathering today, I feel a sense of homecoming. It's already mentioned, I used to be a part of literature in the past. Although my present responsibilities lies in public service and national policy, my intellectual roots remain deeply connected to literature, language, music, and culture. It is therefore a special privilege for me to stand before poets, novelists, translators, scholars, and creative practitioners whose work continues to illuminate the human condition. The future will undoubtedly be shaped by technology, economics, and politics, but it will also be shaped by imagination. The societies that flourish will not simply be those that innovate technologically. They will be those who preserve curiosity, creativity, empathy, and the capacity to see the world through another person's eyes. These are precisely the qualities that literature cultivates in my understanding. To our distinguished international guests, I extend my deepest appreciation for choosing Nepal as a place for reflection, dialogue, and creativity. I hope you will experience not only our mountains and monuments, but also the warmth of our people, the richness of our cultures, and the depth of our stories. Having spent years among books, poems, songs, and stories before entering public office, I have come to appreciate that societies are sustained not only by roads, laws, technologies, and institutions. They are also sustained by imagination, memory, language, and culture. Governments may build infrastructure, institutions may build systems, economies may create prosperity, but writers, artists, poets, and storytellers help build the inner life of a nation, and nations need undoubtedly both. With these words, it is my great honor to formally inaugurate the Himalayan Literature Festival and the Writers' Workshop 2026. May this festival inspire meaningful conversations, lasting friendships, creative collaborations, and new works that enrich our shared human experience. I wish all participants a rewarding and memorable stay in Nepal. Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Minister Timlisena. This is wonderful. Great. You know, Himalayas, as we know in Sanskrit, is Devatatma, place where soul of the God lives. So we are from the place where soul of the God lives, and we in this whole world of writing, I was always say that Nepal, as one of my friends said, Nepal has 3 religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and tourism. And I think tourism of poetry as its third, kind of plane of promotion. Tourism should be developed because it's a fertile ground with ancient history of writing where everybody is a poet. I think we should promote, like Ireland does, our next speaker, about Ireland is a place of poets. People floods of buses, people rushing to the W. Yeats place, Sligo, I was there. And the whole country is like so full of poetry and songs and music. So next speaker I invite you is Martin Doyle, the book editor of the Irish Times and a memoirist. His new book is just come, and we will be discussing with him after this event. I'll be talking to him about his new book. And Martin Doyle.
Thank you so much, Hugh, for inviting me today and for that wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be here at the top of the world. So my job as books editor of the Irish Times, or part of it, excuse me, is to act, I guess, as an ambassador for Irish literature. My new book, A Hosting, is interviews with 60 Irish writers that I've conducted over 35 years of my career. But also, as an ambassador, your job is also to report back, to go out into the world and to learn things, and then go home and share the good news with your fellow citizens at home. And that's what I intend to do when I return tomorrow to Ireland, to let people know what a thriving literary and cultural centre Nepal is. It's been a wonderful experience for me to be here this week and listen to writers from all around the world, and as we share our stories and our verse. There are no borders in Irish literature. Those are the words of David Marcus, who is one of our most distinguished literary critics. David himself was of Jewish origin. His family had come to Ireland from the Baltics, fleeing persecution there. So he knew all about the importance and the dangers of borders and nationalism. What he meant initially by that was that in a partitioned Ireland, partition was a political instrument, whereas in literature, the border was not recognised by its writers. In other words, writers from the north of Ireland, like myself, like Paul, behind me, we make no distinction between north and south. I'm struck, I guess, having listened to Paul's poetry. I feel that he somewhat stole my thunder, or should I say blood and thunder, perhaps, in talking about the history of the conflict in the north of Ireland, which is the subject of my first book, a memoir, Dirty Linen, The Troubles in My Home Place, which is a story, a micro-history of the conflict which we experienced for 30 years in the north of Ireland. Whereas so many histories, I think, are told by politicians or by paramilitaries, those responsible for the violence and for the conflict, I wanted to focus instead on the victims, my neighbours, both Catholic and Protestant, who suffered and died and bore the brunt of that conflict still to this day, because when a conflict ends, the suffering does not end. There is such a thing as the long tail of trauma. And I think this might be relevant, as much relevant to society here in Nepal, which has suffered in very recent times conflict and violence and civil war. And so there is a universality in literature which it is important to recognise and to celebrate. I was speaking yesterday at a Ashoka school here in Kathmandu, and I asked the school children that I was giving a workshop to, did they know any Irish writers? And their answer was yes, John Boyne, who wrote The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas, which again is a retelling of a vital story, the story of the Holocaust, through the eyes of an innocent child. Just another example of the power of literature to inform and instruct. It's also striking to be here today when, back home in Ireland, the Jaipur Literary Festival has been celebrated on tour for the last week, both in Dublin and in Belfast and in Armagh and in Dundalk, right on the border. In fact, I read in the Irish Times yesterday that the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi was giving a talk in Trinity College Dublin. This is the positive side of globalization, if you like, a sharing of ideas transcending the world. It also strikes me to be here as books editor of the Irish Times, that I'm here with two fellow Irish writers, neither of whom actually live in Ireland. Anne Casey, the poet, who lives in Sydney, and Paul Muldoon, who lives in New York City. Again, this is the globalization of Irish letters. I also work for a newspaper, the Irish Times, which takes pride in the fact that it has a global approach to news. It wants to inform its readers not just of what's happening in Ireland, north and south, but also what's happening around the world. So we have a broad network of foreign correspondents in Beijing, Washington, London, Berlin, Paris, and Brussels. We also have a foreign correspondent in Sally Hayden, who travels the world, reporting from trouble spots, war zones, places of oppression and depression. And Sally herself has recently published a book which I can recommend to you all. It's called This Is Also a Love Story. Having reported from war zones around the world, she became depressed and demoralized, but she also realized that maybe there was a different way of telling a story. Instead of just giving the headline about the terrible atrocities that happen, in a way that, because of the time constraints and space constraints of a daily newspaper, it's hard to get below the headlines to actually communicate the stories of the individuals to which history is happening to right now. And she realized that even when she was telling stories from war zones, when she was interviewing people who had suffered terrible things, she realized that she was also hearing love stories, because the victims that she was speaking to had also gone out of their way to maybe save lives, or the love that they expressed for their children that they had lost in conflict, or perhaps their parents. And I think this is an important message again, which it is worth sharing. I'll close there. Just say it's an honour to be here. I've really enjoyed my last week here in Nepal. I realise I've only just scratched the surface, and I very much hope to come back one day and see more. Thank you.
Thank you. Another thanks to Martin Doyle for coming here. Before we invite British Ambassador to speak, I will have Tina Chang, who is a professor visiting professor at Harvard, and also very distinguished poet and editor of the Norton Anthology, which covered even some of the writings from Nepal and India. And she is very actively engaged in teaching and in spreading the word, the importance of the word around. So, Tina.
Namaste. How are you today? Can I ask that we do something together for a second? Yes, can we do something together? Can we each of us, all the way from the back, where are the students, and the wave all the way to the front? I want us all to take 3 long breaths together. Okay, so we're going to start now. And in order to settle ourselves, can you hear my clap, and can you repeat my clap exactly in the way that you hear it, please? So all the way from the back, all the way to the front. And if we don't do it correctly, we're going to try it again. Ready? Try it again. Wait, you're gonna wait. Oh, I like it that you're doing it. One more time. Thank you so much. Oh, we're all together. This whole entire week, we have been talking about the dissolving of boundaries. I come to you from the United States, a place where I believe that there is great conflict right now. And I believe the greatest conflict that we have ever experienced in our US history. And it is because we have a leader who we do not agree with. And I'll tell you why we do not agree with him. We do not agree with him because he represents anger, frustration, conflict, and most of all, fear. One of the things that I have been the most moved by since I have come here is that in Nepal, I feel very much its peace. And I feel very much its peace, especially in its young people. We have been helped along by the young interns here, and I'll tell you a story of a young man. May I do that? We have had workshops all week long, and in my first workshop here, I presented a tarot deck. And in the tarot deck, I asked all the people in the class to please pull out one card that was meaningful to them. And the young man pulled out the card of the warrior. When you think of the warrior, what do you think of? I think, obviously, of war, of conflict. I definitely do not think of peace. So all week long, this young man thought to himself, what does this card represent? The other day, the young interns took us out, and all day long, it rained and rained and rained. And we thought, what does this rain mean? So I sat in the rain with all the young interns, and you know what they took me to do? They took me out for tea. And in the rain, I read that young man the meaning of the word warrior. And the meaning of the word warrior is not to fight, and it's not to fight with other people, and it's not to fight with other nations. It means to fight for yourself and what you believe in. Before I came here, I am very good friends with Tracy K. Smith, and a seer and a guide told us that we would encounter water. And on the days that I've been here, I've been a part of a festival that actually honors the gods of water. And what is water there for but to wash over the land, feed the crops so it could feed us, and most of all, to bless us. So I just wanted to thank you all for blessing us with your humanity and with your kindness and your daily acts of grace, so that I could feel that while I was here, a dissolving of my own inner conflicts. Before I read this poem, I would like to say that whatever I hope that you came here for, that you feel that you have found here in Nepal. This is a poem by Tracy K. Smith, and I think it's very appropriate for the occasion. It's called "The Goddess Speaks of Union." I am the water within you, the current tugging you always toward my arms. I am the falling droplet and the vapor ascending to the altitude of the mountains, of cloud, blush, bluish, continents gray as whales, islands that marry and collide, placid as cows. Meet me. Where struggle falls away, meet me. Where the blade of reason and the knife of pride shatter into mist. My child loves creation. You who believe yourself small at my feet, be large, open wide, like a road, wider, a field. Flood yourself, pour through us and into us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you for coming here to Nepal and spreading the, aroma of your writing and in interacting with our school children, with our university students. And now we have a British ambassador who's also a poet. I think this is a very coincident. This festival is getting more prominence to poets, and we have film documentaries on Octavia Paz and several other poets. And as a great, bridge between the United Kingdom and Nepal, I will request British Ambassador Rob Fenn to please come and say a few words.
Well, really a very few words. I think I'm standing between you and coffee. And also because I think, though I was described as a published author, I think last time I read out the entirety of my published works. So I can't do that again. In a way, my career is evolving in the opposite direction to the minister's. He had a great career in civil society as a fearless writer and interviewer. And now he is kind of carrying the burden of public office. I have spent 50 years laboring under that burden, unable really to publish what I think. And I am looking forward to retirement immensely. And I think that's when I will discover whether there is more in me that is publishable. I thought I would just share with you the thing I might write. It's far too long at the moment. It needs to be sort of sculpted into something publishable. And it sprawls across all those evenings during COVID when I was locked up alone in a house in Jakarta, and many moments of free time since. It was conceived with my two boys, who've gone on to much more interesting things. And if it ever has a subtitle, it will be for my boys who were too busy to write it themselves. And it will give you some sense of how it draws on my many years living and working in Asia, and specifically the sort of spirituality of Nepal. If I tell you that it may end up actually as 3 books, and one of them is called Entanglement, the middle one will be called Reincarnation, and the last one Detachment. It's basically a science fiction romp written for teenagers, which then had sort of kind of imposed on it all these amazing experiences and mind-expanding kind of encounters I have had in Nepal. It also reflects the fact that I am an armchair scientist. So I think if there's any kind of theme that I can draw out of it, it will be how, on the one hand, there is science, and I'm an enormous admirer of our scientific colleagues. And on the other hand, there is the kind of unscientific mess that is us, humanity. And I think some of the insights into the way science and humanity interlock begin here, in the birthplace of Lord Buddha, in the way Buddhism spread out around the world. Most of you will have read the William Dalrymple book, the latest one, The Golden Road, on the way India was at the center of the world in those days, and continues to give to us through a man born in Lumbini, enlightened in India, and then became kind of public property till now. So my book involves some very prosaic things. I guess one Nepal connection is that the kinetic part of it is probably done by Gurkhas, and that means that some of the story happens in Brunei. I have a character who begins as a Muslim, becomes effectively inhabited by the goddess Kali. She is a warrior. And she has a romance with a British colonel who dies, and she gives him a sky burial up in Muktinat in Upper Mustang. There is one of the characters in the book is the internet. He takes his name from Alan Turing, his dad. And this person, Alan, for his own mental health, can you imagine being the internet? It is really a recipe for madness, given the ghastly things we fill him with. But Alan gets himself a guru, Rinpoche, the monk in charge of the wonderful Tiger's Nest Monastery in Bhutan. And so a lot of the sort of riffing on reincarnation and enlightenment and spirituality take place between the internet as a humble student and this rather quirky abbot of the Tiger's Nest Monastery. So I'm not going to go on. I'm just going to leave you with that sense that I'm going to have a busy retirement trying to make sense of any of that. As ambassador in Kathmandu, it is my job to know what's happening in Nepal and to celebrate the best bits of it. And that's really why I came here today. I do think this festival, you at it, what you do together, and being inspired by Nepal is one of the most important things happening this week. So thank you for having me.
So thank you, everybody. This is wonderful. We have tea for everybody waiting, and there are 3 stages. There's one upstairs with the audience.